All right. You know what time it is. Hang on to your baby powder and fit kicks, because it's another Arrow panel. Episode number, who even knows? Just kidding, I do. It's 51, and I am your host for today. My name is Demo. Go by Omid in the real world. And I got here with me, Blue Chows.
Hello, I'm Dalton, aka Blue Chows, Blue Chaos, at Run Dalton Run on Twitter, live from my closet.
And
I'm Roger Clark at Roger Clark on Twitter.
And finally, introducing our special guest today, none other than the Godfather of Stamina himself, Ian, aka Archi. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Now, did I pronounce it correctly this time?
No, I should have said something about that before we started.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's Archi. I was telling Dalton about this earlier. When I met Mad Matt, we never spoke my name at any point, and he just assumed my name was Archie for like 4 years. And it's like, if you were in the hard stuff community back then, it's like Mad Matt was like God. So it's like you didn't want to correct that guy, So I just accepted that my name was Archie for 4 years for him. But it's Archi.
So, in putting together some of the show notes for this episode today, so Dalton actually put together a little disclaimer saying how to pronounce your name. And so I want to mispronounce it on purpose this time so you could correct me on quote-unquote on air, and so we can move past this as a community. So it is pronounced Archi. I have been educated, therefore you all have now been educated. Okay, so we're so happy you're here with us today. I would love to just kind of have you start by telling us kind of what the big thing is now. Before we get into your backstory, what is happening now that you've kind of put together that has taken kind of the 4-panel home community by storm?
Yeah. So right now, as of last week, I guess Tuesday was when we launched because I was late. I was trying to go for a midnight release on Monday, but I ran into some issues. But it's Stamina RPG 4. This is the 4th year we've been doing this. It's sort of like a combination online tournament / qualifier for East Coast Stamina 9, which is the next ECS event that's coming up. It's sort of like a little stamina adventure. You have tasks to complete, little quests that you can take on. There's rankings based off of different metrics that you're scored on.
You can collect items.
Yeah, there's relics.
They do stuff?
They do stuff. So they're sort of combination like achievements as they would be known in anything else. Yeah. But they're also for use in the actual upcoming ECS event.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the theme is built out to make use of them, and they're basically like a way that you can, without going into too much detail, it's just so you can tailor your set to be more in line with your particular playstyle. Because there's some stamina players that are, they like to play the faster stuff. Some people like to play the longer, slower stuff, and some people like to focus on their scoring. So the relic system is sort of a way that I can let people play to their different strengths without it, sort of taking over the format. It's still, bottom line is, if you do harder stuff, you're going to perform better in the rankings in the actual tournament. But it's a nice little wrinkle that adds an element of strategy, and if there's people that are closely ranked, that can sort of end up pushing them over. So
That's awesome. So you said this is Stamina RPG 4.
Yep.
How has it kind of like evolved from the first iteration?
It's been quite a ride. So the very first one, and I might end up giving him props a couple of times throughout this, because I feel like a lot of my best ideas were in some sense inspired by him, but raw input, or Mike Rosevine as he's known on Facebook, who happened to win ECS 8. It was his first time winning last year, so congrats to him. But he said to me one time, he was like, man, it would be real cool if, some weekend we just all got together, like him and some of my other friends, and we just went through like this list of songs and we checked them off, and like we collectively were just trying to pass all these songs. And there was just like this big list of Stamina songs that we were trying to get through. And I thought about that, and I was like, man, that would be cool. And so that sort of eventually manifested in two different things that sort of comprised the major ECS online events each year. It started out at first as what the 0.5 series has become, which is the ECS team tournaments. So starting from ECS 4.5, there's been a team tournament each year. It's 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, 7.5, and most recently 8.5, which is still ongoing. They basically were sort of built around that idea of, here's a huge list of songs, let's try to pass as many as we can. But the wrinkle in that is there's 3 of you on your team, and you're trying to do as many of them as you can, basically. The RPG element of that was the checking things off. It's like, so when it came time for me to sort of make that into a thing, that's where that inspiration came from, that conversation. And it also was sort of derived from this problem I had with the way we've been doing qualifiers up to that point. So obviously, like, before there was ever Stamina, all tournaments were basically like PA, FA. It's all about score attacking. And then Mad Matt started doing his thing. But to a greater or lesser degree, score was like this huge element, which like didn't really track with how people played hard stuff. Like, so I never really liked it. And it got particularly bad in ECS 5, where it's just like, everyone's trying to pass this really hard 18, and it's just like it becomes a score battle. And it's like this, I feel like this is like punishing the people that are not as good at scoring, but can pass way harder stuff than an 18, Like at that point, there were people that were like doing 22s or like, almost doing 22s. Several
That's
people.
crazy.
The concept of a 22 is just like
it's
ridiculous
insane.
to me.
I can't really even understand what that means as
Well,
a
and
DDR
keep in
person.
mind, especially back then, ECS 5, that's like, people, meme about how pads are now and like how they just mod them and make them really sensitive, whatever. Like, that was not so much the case back then, People like Phil Zeterix were banging out like 22s on like pads that in many cases were like pretty deep and pretty not that sensitive. So like it was crazy back then. Like the people that were really good were like, they were hauling ass. Can I swear on this?
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, totally.
I meant to ask that. Man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Phil is just a legendary
Yeah.
dance game player. Full stop. Pump, I2G, DDR.
Yeah.
Just a legendary dude for sure. Yeah, that's so cool. I think one of my questions I had for you, like as we reflect on, to Roger's point, I don't even know as a DDR player what a 22 would even look like. How do you really get to discern at the higher difficulties, like what makes a 23 versus a 24, for example? Because in DDR, we bicker about ratings. The community bickers about ratings all the time. Like, oh, such and such is a 16, such and such is a 17. At that level, what pushes something to like a 24 versus a 23?
So, and I've seen this memed about sometimes too. It's like, oh, stamina ratings don't really mean anything. And I always feel like the people saying that are like on the outside looking in. But like in my view, we have like the most structured method for like determining ratings, because stamina charts are just so streamlined that you literally, like, your difficulty is, break placement, the speed of the song, and the length of the runs. Like, we're not worried about crossovers, gimmicks. We're not worried about weird rhythms, anything crazy like that going on. We have these pure elements, and we can say, okay, this amount of stream at this BPM, like, this falls in the same range as all these other charts that are very, very similar. So this is almost definitely this rating. And
do you have like an actual like formula or like a program you've written where you can just like plug those things in and it like just
Matt does. I mean, in Rhythm Horizon, he has an algorithm that can calculate on the fly to where you fail how difficult the chart was, which is really cool. The first time I got to see that was at Bearpocalypse 5, I think. And so, like, this is, like, if I can just, give him props for something I still haven't managed after all these years to work into my own tournaments. This is, like, the coolest thing about Bearpocalypse was that to me, like the later ones. Like, I don't have a way I can say, you get this number of points for where you got to in the song, because that's how hard it was up to that point. I have compromises basically with my own algorithms to sort of work around that. But yeah, I mean, I have my own systems. The RPG has a number of different metrics. Some are based off of rating in part, but then experience points, for instance, is completely agnostic of anything to do with ratings. It's purely based off of a couple of different factors. I have a parser that goes through charts and pulls out density, BPM, like the amount of 16th stream, and things of that nature. And I have a formula that basically fits it into a couple of different brackets based off of the amount of stream it has and a number of other, things. And it calculates the points based off of that, which is extremely important because one of the things I added to Stamina RPG 3 last year was rate modding. So prior to SRPG 3, it was literally you check a box and that's your credit for the chart. Starting with Stamina RPG 3, we added the QR codes and stuff, which meant that I could keep participation very easy and low effort, but still allow people to enter scores and rate mods, which was something I really wanted to do. The rate mods factor into your experience points. So I can say this chart with this breakdown at this BPM is going to be worth the same, experience as a chart that's rated higher difficulty because it's maybe almost the exact same breakdown of like 16th stream and stuff, but it's at a higher BPM or, what have you.
Wow.
So basically, like, I can, they give me a rate and it looks at the chart and it's like, okay, it's this many experience points. And if you had another chart that was, the same thing, but like you turn the knobs, it's like the same over experience. I don't know. I just love experience points. I spent a lot of time working on that. So,
I mean, Roger's a pretty big RPG fan in general.
Yeah, cool.
So
Yeah, mostly the JRPGs. So
Yeah.
I think it's like the two game genres that I really care about are like JRPGs and dance games. And
Yeah,
it's like
same.
they're the only good ones, really.
No, I'm with you. I mean, it's like, so, and you were talking about this sort of being like a labor of love earlier, but that's really what it
Yeah.
is, because I'm able to incorporate the things that I like the most about my two favorite types of games. Three, kind of, because last year there was also an accompanying visual novel, and I'm really into VNs, which is like a really obscure.
That's so sick,
thing.
dude. I had no idea.
Yeah, so starting with ECS 7, I started injecting little bits of lore, like storyline and stuff. So like through up till present Stamina RPG 4, there's like a storyline ongoing, and it's a lot of it is just like memes and stuff, but there's also like, it's like there's actually something there, a little more to it than just funny quests and stuff.
yeah, I like all the all the themes for the different like Stamina RPGs or even the
Yeah.
the ECS stuff are like so cool. This year's Animal Crossing, obviously, which is very timely. Those graphics are awesome. Who did the graphic for that?
That would be Pluto. Yeah, I really was pushing for FF7 remake because like that to me was not just timely but super appropriate. I had to settle for just getting a relic in because we couldn't find a way to make it work that I was satisfied with. I made the mistake of doing like Final Fantasy too early in the ECSs. I did it in ECS 6, and the logo is like an arrow that looks like a meteor. So it's like I can't do that again. So we're like,
I
okay,
already did it.
what else would be appropriate? Like Midgar? Like Midgar is like its own character practically in Final Fantasy 7. But then I was like, we can't do that from like, it can't be like a side view of Midgar because it's You know, it's like you wouldn't recognize it, and if it's like a top view, it's like you couldn't
It's a
find a way to
pizza.
make that work. Yeah. So we kicked a lot of ideas around, and eventually I was just like, all right, F it. You wanted to do Animal Crossing, let's do that.
Yeah,
But
I
people
think
seem to like it.
I think the theming it makes it approachable for people. I think too. I mean, and especially with Animal Crossing. I mean, you guys are over like 200 entrants already.
Yep.
That's like more than like basically any other rhythm game event that I can think of.
Yeah, last year we got up to 370 something by the end of
Wow.
it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
We're already on pace to beat that, but it usually tapers off after the first month, but you still see them trickling in there.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
while we're still on, in the earlier part of the episode, can you kind of describe like what stamina is for people who are listening to this and might not really understand the dichotomy?
Yeah, that's probably an important thing to cover. So stamina, I guess if I was going to boil it down to the TLDR version, which I'm pretty bad at, feel free when I'm just rambling to cut me off because I can just go forever if I get started.
I mean,
But
that's kind of
anyway.
the whole thing with stamina. It's just going forever.
Yeah, I guess that's appropriate.
Come on, Ian, keep going. You can do it. You can do it. Keep talking. Keep
And
talking.
here I still haven't gotten to the point. So there you go. But yeah, stamina is it's a lot of people I think mistake it for, and I sort of got this vibe from one of the questions I got asked too on Twitter. But it's like a lot of people think it's like, oh, it's just something that's tiring. It's not really what stamina is. It's a type of chart, is how I would define it. There's 3 types of charts for hard stuff. And then there's obviously tech stuff and gimmicks and all kinds of other things. But in the world of hard things on ITG, which generally is anything beyond like 13s, not to say that there aren't 14s and 15s that are tech too, but they're rarer. But anything basically beyond a 13, you're going to be looking at one of 3 types of charts. And one is foot speed, which would be something that is difficulty that's based off of spikes. So like very short duration difficulty based off of high BPMs relative to the block level. Then there's mid speed, which is sort of in between foot speed and the third category, which would be stamina. And what would count as each of these 3 categories is really dependent on the block level. So for instance, for a 12 or a 13, depending on how you would classify Determinator from In the Groove 2, if you consider that a 12, then let's say it's a 12, that would be a foot speed 12. Pandemonium would be a stamina 12, or 13. Should have just went with 13 for that. I know there was talk back in the day that should be a 13 because it was harder to score on. But
What, Determinator?
yeah,
Yeah,
way back in the day.
I suck at it, but I kind of still feel like it's 12.
Yeah, I
know?
agree with that. But part of that I think is also, and this is an interesting sort of segue because different people have different strengths. So like a lot of what people say when they're like, I don't get stamina ratings, it's like, well, it's not that you don't get stamina ratings, it's that you don't understand the interplay between stamina, mid speed, and foot speed. Because there are people that are good at foot speed and bad at stamina. You can have like a 15 that's like 240 BPM, and you can have one that's 150 BPM. And those are completely different skill sets. And it just sort of scales up from there. So you have like expected ranges basically of what you would expect to see in terms of like total 16ths, like longest run, and just general breakdowns of the measures and stuff for these different types of charts at different BPMs at different difficulties.
On a more abstract level, like beyond like just the specific type of chart, like what do you think like playing stamina means versus playing tech stuff? Like what do you think it like does it have it obviously has a meaning to you, like a personal like meaning that you obviously like it more than the other stuff, I'm assuming, because you put so much energy into this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But why is that? And what's it all about, really?
What's it all about? Like, why do I subject myself to the pain? It's like...
Keep talking, Ian. Keep going. You can do it, bro.
So I always, when I think about the different disciplines, so to speak, and the appeal of each one, like, I can sort of understand what draws people to the different things. Like, for foot speed, like, when you get fast and you do fast stuff and you nail it, like, you survive that run at, like, at foot speed now is, into the 300s for BPM on pad, which is, like,
It's so ridiculous.
I don't even know if you know this, but, like, there's stuff in the RPG that's, like, over 300 BPM. It goes up to 345.
And we're talking
That's
16th
the
notes.
fastest.
16th notes, everyone. 16th notes.
Technically 24ths at 230, but the equivalent BPM would be 345 16ths.
Oh my god. I like how 16ths is just like the gold standard of like.
Yeah, we sort of translate everything to that, and it's helpful for me just because my algorithms and stuff are all based off of 16ths. So like whenever there's something that isn't 16ths, when I'm setting all this up, I'm like, oh, I have to convert this shit. Like, it's such a pain. But yeah, like, the appeal for foot speed is like you're doing a fast thing and it's over and you're like not that tired because like it was like 2 seconds long, but you did a fast thing. And if you fail, it's like whatever. It took 2 seconds and it failed, and it's annoying. Maybe the pad sucks, or maybe I suck right now. But like, it was cool when I did it, and it was hard, and noobs can't do it. Like, I feel like that's what people are thinking when they're enjoying their foot speed. And then like with tech, it's like, yeah, I'm like so technical, and I can like do all these rhythms, and it sounds really cool with my feet, and like everyone plays this stuff, and I beat that guy's score. And I did this match with this guy, and the scores were real close, but I pulled it out. And it's like, I get it. Like, that's really fun. Stamina, it's like you're subjecting yourself to pain and torture for extended durations of time, and it's horrible, and you don't want to do it. And a lot of the time, if you're me at least, you don't do it. You stop, and you fail a song, and you're real mad at yourself. But you pick yourself up, and you play another long-ass song, and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to get through it this time. And then eventually you do. And you're like, I did it, and then you collapse, and it's great.
What's
Catharsis.
what is the longest song you've played?
The longest song I've played and passed would be, there's longer stuff than this, but the longest one I've managed to get through was a 21 from SRPG 3 called Journey to Legendary. Mike Raw Input, he thinks it might be a 22, but it's 3 hours long. It's 176 BPM, I think, for most of it.
What?
And it has a spot at the end where
That's
like
insane.
for 40 measures it goes up to 220, like, and this is like 10 minutes from the end. So it's like you get to the end and you're like, your legs are done, and you suddenly have to stream like 50 BPM faster.
See, I asked this
What?
question. I asked this question so that I could like one up
The
you.
fuck?
So that I could one up you and be like, yeah, well, I ran a half marathon, which was an hour and a half long, but you played a chart that's twice as long as that.
And the longest chart, and this is even worse, the longest chart in SRPG 3 is over twice as long as the one I mentioned. Wasn't the hardest thing in it, but Excess Project Collection Complete or Full. I don't even remember the name. There's a couple different songs with a similar name. Excess Project, it's like an artist. They do hard bass. It's 7 hours long. 150 to like 155 or something.
Has anybody passed it?
Like 4 people passed it last year, yeah.
What?
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
You got a special
Who
relic
are
for
these
it. It's a
people
pretty
to
good
me?
relic. Yeah. It's worth the effort.
Unbelievable to me. I'm literally speechless.
Roger said, "Who are these people?" Which I think speaks to something kind of about the stamina community. That like it's pretty like insular, I think, or like or insular is a little bit derogatory, but like it's
Low key.
like,
It's like
well,
people
yeah,
don't really
but
know.
like the people that play stamina like just play stamina and like don't really like interact a whole lot like outside of the community. Like I saw some guy from, I think he's from Montreal, playing stamina stuff. He was like passing like a 23 or 22 or something, like HSARUS or something like that. I don't know.
You know, there's...
Oh yeah, Daniel. Yep, I know.
Yeah, he posted on Facebook and he's like, "Oh, I just passed a 22," and I'm like, "I've never heard of this person before," and they're doing like this completely ridiculous shit. And like I've been playing this game for like 20 years, and there's like these people just seemingly come out of nowhere. I mean, he's probably also been playing for a long time, or
His first ECS was like ECS 4, so he's been around, but he's been making a strong comeback in the last year or two.
Yeah, but I mean, not just him, but like, there's just so many people that I'm like, oh, I'll like see a video on YouTube that I'm like, I have no idea who this person is, and they are just like absolutely ridiculous at this game.
I mean, it kind of makes sense when you think about it, right? Because it's like, so what's the impetus for, so we go get scores, right? We're the tech players. We go get scores. We share those scores with our friends and with social media, and it's like fun to celebrate. And there's like beating people on EMUs, and there's seeing high scores trump other high scores, right? That makes sense. With stamina, as Ian described, the kind of cathartic feeling of you complete a song and then you kind of keel over and pass out and celebrate that with whoever's watching, or after the fact with just like yourself and friends or whatever. It makes sense that that community would be quote unquote insular, or kind of like a walled garden, right? Because like that specific type of showing what you did would only be important to like certain people that get or chase after that feeling as well. So I don't know. I think it's like that in combination of like, I think events being very separate, which is something I'd love to hear Ian's take on. Like, should tech and stamina remain separate? Should they come together? Like how, what are your thoughts on that? But I that's my take, at least, on how, on like people just kind of look at their own people, right? There's like these networking circles.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I think that another part, sort of on the flip side, like I think it's a lot easier to understand stamina stuff. Like if I see somebody post a score, like I saw this guy post a 23, and I can see the chart breakdown in the notation on the results screen,
Yeah.
and I could see the BPM, I'm like, oh, this is 230 BPM, and it has like 64 measure run or whatever. Like I know what that is in my head. I don't need to know what that song is. I know that that's ridiculous. Whereas like with DDR, if you see somebody post a picture of an 18, it's like, okay, it's an 18, and they got, if I said like, oh yeah, I PFC'd Astrogazer, you'd be like, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like, and that
this is a problem for tech on ITG too.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like,
with
tech,
without
with
the context of the chart, you have no idea if it even matters. Like you can say, oh yeah, like I PFC'd Possession or whatever, right? But then like that versus like one of the 17s, I can't even. My DDR foo is not quite up to date, so I'm gonna go with facts. Like a PFC on Possession versus facts, there's a big difference there, right? Because like one has all the ridiculous like BPM changes, and it's higher BPM in general and what have you. It's a lot harder
Orange
to
node
score
syndrome, etc.
Yeah. I mean, but
God,
like you were saying, even with tech ITG, unless I know what a chart is, like I'll see somebody post a quad on a 12, I'm like, okay, I have no idea what this is.
Yep.
Like that means nothing to me, really. And like the packs and the songs are changing so often that like by the time you kind of get familiar with stuff, like there's new stuff, and then people are posting scores on the new stuff, and unless you're keeping up, like you don't know how impressive something
you literally
really
have no idea.
So I mean, that's what I do kind of like appreciate about like stamina. When I do see stamina stuff, I'm just like, I can look at this, I know exactly what that is basically, and have a rough idea of how hard and how impressive it is.
Yeah.
So I personally like that aspect about it. And I think another thing is like that I think that the reason why people are drawn to stamina versus like tech is because like tech requires like absolute perfection, basically. With scoring, like that is your end goal. And if you're trying to PFC something in DDR, if you get like one great, you're like, oh, that's it, and you have to give up or start again.
Right.
Whereas like stamina like inherently has, or I mean foot speed or any hard stuff inherently has like a little bit of a buffer built in, like that you're not going for quite that same level. And so it you're just like pushing your mind and your body of like
it's a different kind of challenge. Exactly. The best way to say it without making it sound like one is better or worse than the other.
No, like, I'm like absolutely not trying to. I'm trying to like give props to.
Yeah, I didn't think you were trying to do that. I just wanted to rephrase in a way that couldn't be taken that way.
Yeah, no, they are very different challenges, but I think that's like why they appeal to different people, because like even personally,
absolutely.
like I get fed up with like the perfectionist kind of thing about DDR, or like even, you know, old school ITG trying to like 99
Yeah.
something. It's like, oh, I got a miss, have to give up. Whereas with, you know, if you're trying to pass with 23 or whatever, it's like, okay, a miss doesn't matter in the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things.
Even if you're trying to get a good score on a 23, like, you know what? Like, you don't have to worry about getting that one miss, because a good score on a 23 is like, you know,
And
mid 90s or something.
yeah,
Even lower than that. Like, I guess best, like, top level score on like a 23, like the best anyone's ever done is going to be, you know, mid 90s, upper 90s, like 96ish. Like, a good score is like upper 80s realistically.
wow.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't, just watching all of the SRPG4 streams lately has just been so inspirational because I have been a tech player my entire life, and obviously, when you say it, it's extremely straightforward and it makes perfect intuitive sense that there's, you know, foot speed, mid speed, and stamina. That makes perfect sense. But on the outside looking in, that doesn't always seem readily apparent. It's like not super obvious that there's delineations, I guess.
yeah.
And so my kind of poison of choice has been trying to put everything on FA plus and do stamina FA, and that's been super fun for me.
That's what
Being
I like
able
to do too.
yeah, I know. So I bring it up. Like Roger and I both kind of share scores in the same server, and it's like, I think for us, we get to do the stamina portion of that kind of trifecta you described, and then we still get to keep our tech
Yeah.
DNA intact, and it's super super fun. So
Yeah. It,
yeah, it's cool that you can kind of customize it, just like tech, right? You can play songs with brackets, play songs with foot switches, you can play straightforward stuff, gimmicky stuff like chaos, whatever. It's customizable to an extent.
yeah. And, I mean, I'm with you there on the stamina FA stuff. I mean, that's like, you know, I don't know how much we're gonna get into, like, you know, ancient history here about any of this stuff, but like, you know, my origins are very much in the stamina FA vein, because back in my day there weren't stamina charts beyond like 16, so the only option was to get good at FAing it. So I did. I mean, I have like 99.8 on like every pendulum chart basically. So
Yeah, I mean, so I mean,
Crazy.
I think that going back in time would be interesting to hear about of like how the stamina scene kind of came to be. You know, of course, with officials, there was the pendulum stuff which you wrote, and there was like the Dragon Force stuff, which back in back in the day, like you know, stamina to me was like 140 to like 175, and then like 200 was like where foot speed started, and now like it just all kind of blurs together, and that you're having people do stamina stuff that is faster than like foot speed used to be. Like I still can't
yeah,
do like 220 BPM runs. Like even like a measure of 220 I can't. I can, you know, sometimes
yeah,
do. So it's just like absurd to me. But so I mean, from your perspective, it sounds like you've been there from the beginning. That like how did this sort of scene evolve and sort of become what it is? I mean, it's a huge question, but like, you know, become what it is today.
yeah. So I mean, as far as my own experience and what I can speak to, I like started in 2006. So there's parts of the history that I only know a little bit about and wasn't really there for, but it sort of started like with many things, with machines getting hacked and then R21. Because the very first things people were playing were keyboard charts. So of course, like One More Lovely, Vertex Beta, Strange Program, Holy Orders, all that, you know, shit. And you had people like Evil Dave and Cali Mist, Duck Amuck, uh, you know, playing that stuff, and a lot of, you know, the early idea of what constituted a hard song and how you played those songs was based off of those days. You know, back in like 2007, 2008, I guess is when that really would have been getting off the ground.
But it's funny because
Um,
those charts were made like One More Lovely. Like I don't even know what year that was made in. It was like probably
oh
like
yeah, I have no
2002 or
idea.
something. Like
Yeah. So I mean that some of that stuff is really old, you know. But yeah, so it sort of started with that, um, and then it sort of progressed, I would say, to charts intended for pad play that were that difficult. So like when I'm saying that difficult, I'm talking like 14 and beyond. If I was going to name a person, and there were a couple other people that were writing stuff, but the first person really was Brandon, the Cosmic Pope, and Cosmic Reincarnate, Cosmic Apocalypse. Those packs really had the first like 14 plus content written for pad. Stuff like Lollet Speed, Decepticon in Reincarnate, and then you've got obviously all the Dragon Force stuff in Cosmic Apocalypse, and a bunch of other oddball charts that are completely lost to history at this point. Stuff like
There was
Bongi Rubble and
Boss on Parade.
yeah. That was in like FA tournaments and stuff because it was kind of techie, right? It had some gimmicks.
Yeah, I mean, it was at Fort Rapids 4 was it that was in the Fort Rapids pack.
Yeah, that's the one you played against Matt at, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was there for that.
Who did the original Blue Army?
Original Blue Army, yeah.
I remember playing that in a tournament like 06.
I think was that a keyboard chart though?
That was a keyboard chart. However,
so,
Brandon also stepped the long version of it in Cosmic Reincarnate.
Okay.
So there's sort of two original Blue Armies, and then I stepped the first real Stamina version of it because I stepped one that didn't. Okay, this is worth mentioning too. So like Stamina stuff used to involve jumps and other weird shit like gimmicks. So like the old Blue Army had just like it was like there's like jumps everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, even worse than like.
I remember making charts like that, dude.
Yeah, that was a thing.
I mean,
like,
and then there's Vertex Beta, which is just
jump. I mean, and those ones like you could forgive it because those were keyboard charts. You know, they were written for keyboard originally, but like it took us a while to figure out that doing a lot of jumps really wasn't that much fun.
Correct.
I mean, I'm pretty good at jumps because I lived through that period, but I mean, I'm one of the people that definitely pushed for it being more stream oriented and, you know, getting rid of the extraneous elements and just, you know, sort of diluting it down to the base form of Stamina, basically. But yeah, so you got your Dragon Force, and then speaking of the basic dressed down Stamina chart, refined to its pure elements, that started, I would say, with Rhapsody of Fire, which directly inspired myself. I did Disbalance 2 and 3, which sort of a lot of that stuff ended up in Sharpnel Streams and Pendulum. So that was like the next step. And then around the same time, Zaya, if you know who that is, he did Cirque du Beast, and Atat did Mocking the Marathon, and he was like working on O. Henry, Mad Stamina. And those are like, I would call like the seminal packs for like modern Stamina, those and Sharpnel Streams. Because a lot of the stuff from those three packs ended up in Sharpnel Streams. And you can sort of trace back the modern style of charting to that.
So what? I'm trying to think back to like the first like Stamina thing that I like. The crazy thing was when Calimist, and you mentioned Calimist earlier,
yeah,
and who is now like he literally like went to the Olympic marathon qualifier.
No, really?
Recently, yeah, no, in
he's such a good runner.
Yeah, in Atlanta. Yeah, he runs like 4.5 minute miles or something. Like he's
nuts. On the regular.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, so he like actually went to go qualify for the Olympic like marathon team basically. But I remember they made a 2-hour long, I think it was called the Jean-Claude Van Damme Challenge.
Yes, I attempted that right after he made it.
Yeah, and so I mean, it was just a 2-hour chart, but it didn't even have a song to it. They just plugged an iPod into the Dedicab.
So, if you really want to know the annoying thing about that chart, there's a bug with OpenITG, and I think with stock ITG too. But I think I'll get into the reason why it didn't affect JJ. So, like, obviously, ITG is like based off of Stepmania, and OpenITG was based off of Stepmania, 395 and whatever. there's like this relic of it being Stepmania called like max 2 scoring, and if you're playing a song with over a certain number of steps, it will legit just like crash Stepmania. If it's rated too high, and like I think it's like if you have the rating, you can get to like a higher number of steps if the rating is lower or something.
Oh,
It's just,
wow.
it's complete BS. But so like right after Calimus made that chart, which as you were saying, it's like 140 BPM, just a solid stream for 2 hours straight. I was too afraid to talk to him back then because I was, kind of a new guy. I was like doing 15s and 16s, but he was Calimus. He was like getting like 96s on OML. So I made my own version of it, which was just the same thing. I just not the same exact arrows he had placed, and I did the same thing. I had my own music playing the whole time through. Got an hour in, and OpenITG crashed on me, and I just sort of sat down and cried for a little bit because I was like, I was gonna pass it, man.
You're like, I
It
was
was a
feeling
terrible
good.
experience.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
no, I was
heartbreaking.
going for it, but yeah. So yeah, you're right. That was like the first like really crazy stamina thing. Like no way you can really call it something else, right? Because back in the day, hard stuff was just hard stuff. There wasn't really a division between foot speed, stamina, jump stream, anything like that. It was all just hard stuff. It was 14 plus. But yeah, that was like the first pure stamina challenge. And then Mad Matt, around the same time was probably when he switched from no bar to doing foot speed stuff with bar.
Oh yeah, sometimes
And
I forget that Matt used to play no bar.
yeah, Mad Matt no bar kid.
Yeah.
He was pretty good at it. I was more impressed with like his like he got like stars on like Infernoplex and Uber Rave like without the bar. I wasn't very impressed by him bracketing through the fire and flames. Like let me just say for anyone that was around back then, which might just be like I don't know. How long have you been around, Roger? I have no idea. I know you two are like ancient, like
I've
maybe even more so than me. But
I've been around the whole time. I started playing DDR in 2001-ish,
okay,
and
so
we
you're
were like
old
one of the
school.
first 20 arcades to get ITG, and
But yeah, Roger wasn't around a whole lot for like the ITG
Gotcha.
days.
yeah, I was kind of a hater, but it is. I'm no longer as much of a hater.
Well, so let me just say from the start, when bracketing was a thing, I thought it was bullshit. It was stupid. I hated it. Like, and for anyone listening to this that doesn't know the history, it used to be a thing that people would play hard stuff, and like, when you would get tired, you would just sit on the brackets and mash on them, like, and somehow like that was considered a legitimate pass.
Yeah, you should never be able to do that in a tournament, especially on like a 17.
Yeah, on The Ordeal Becomes Great,
Yeah,
right?
no, that's totally a bullshit.
I remember that kind of thing specifically being one of the reasons why I was like not interested in this kind of thing, because I was like, well, these look at this. Like the game that I like is the one where you pick up your feet and you stomp really hard
And
and
you actually try to hit the arrows, right?
yeah, and like look at these people. They're just cheating. What they're doing isn't hard or whatever, but it's like not everyone was actually doing that, and it was clearly just a phase that people went through.
Yes.
I think bracketing is the bar argument of stamina.
It was back in the day. It's gone. I will take credit for eliminating that completely. It's like I even got some of the people that held on to that, clung to it for dear life. I got it out of their system, so I'm proud of that. It was the stupidest thing ever. I hated it. But it was pretty funny in tournaments because a lot of like FA players would pick up on it, and they would learn how to do this so that if someone tried to pick a hard song on them, they would just try to cheese through it. Which you were sort of alluding to earlier, right, with your match against Matt at FR4. But like, since I never learned how to bracket, I just learned how to always, fucking pass the song. So it didn't matter for me. Like, it was just a warm up. When FA and Stamina were all still in the same tournament, I would just pick my stuff and they would bracket, and I would just enjoy the free warm up, and they would enjoy losing.
There you go.
So Ian, I want to go to Twitter real fast. We got a lot of questions for you on our SF Evolved handle. I want to start with one from at DDR Sensation, aka Vincent ITG. He asks, "What advice do you have for tech or timing focused players in either DDR or ITG who are nervous or skeptical about trying stamina?" And he also asks, "What are the takeaways and skill sets that transfer best that will make them better players?"
Yeah, so it's funny that this is the one we're starting with because I'd gone down the list like making sure I had something in mind for all of these, and this was the next one that I hadn't gotten to yet.
You just got to hear it off the top of the dome.
Yeah, so
Let's
I'm
go.
just gonna be.
Come on, Ian, you can do it.
One.
Let's go push. 16 more measures. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
So people who are nervous or skeptical about trying stamina. So I think stamina is a necessary skill no matter what discipline you're into on dance games. Like if you want to be able to score well on stuff, you need to have the energy in order to output like your scoring. Like for me, like pretty much anyone else that started around the time I did, like officials were like, you know, your bread and butter on In the Groove. And like, you know, what inspired me to start playing was seeing like Adam Styles, you know, 98ing Hardcore the North. You know, that an old ass video of him doing that. And you know, that I just wanted to do hard stuff and I just kept shooting for the hard stuff. But what I found was eventually after I was able to do really hard stuff beyond what was in the officials, was when I went back to the officials, I had so much stamina that I could just dump all of it into scoring on those officials. Mm-hmm. So like suddenly like, you know, it didn't matter so much that maybe I would, you know, get edged out on like a 9 or a 10 because I knew like I could probably win on a 12 or a 13 if it came up in a match. Yeah. And that definitely applies to, you know, DDR now. There's tons of really technical high-end stuff in DDR that stamina is absolutely something that you would need in order to perform on it. And let me just say, like, if you really love DDR and you're really into it and you're only trying to score on stuff that's like up to, you know, a modern day 14 or whatever, like you're not, like there's a whole part of the game that you're ignoring. And as much as some of those charts might not be the most enjoyable, they're still a part of the game. And I think being a well-rounded player, it's important to expose yourself to that stuff. And like, if you really want to be competitive, like, I don't know, I think to me, it's more exciting to see people really go in and try to do something with those higher end charts, even if they're hard to be consistent on. I mean, a large number of the people that were most successful back in the day when I would go to FA tournaments for In the Groove were people that could do the best on the highest end stuff, you know, stuff like Epileptic Crisis or Vertex Squared or, you know, whatever it happened to be the highest end techie chart available. You know, they were famous for being able to kick ass on those songs. So, you know, I think it's a valuable skill. As far as being skeptical about trying it, you might be surprised. I think you would enjoy it more than you think, especially if you check out a format like Stamina RPG. You know, it was being alluded to earlier. You know, there's a whole Stamina FA component to this, where you are heavily rewarded for performing well on these charts. And not all of them are just straightforward stream charts. I've definitely included content that is more difficult to score on. If you're looking for that kind of stuff, stuff like Sound Chimera in the base pack is definitely going to be up your alley. There's also some stuff like Filthy Friends Unite, I think is the name of it, and 2D Universe. Those are both unlocks. If you're interested in trying to do some more tech FA stuff and you're listening to this, I definitely recommend checking out the Zaya's Circus and Zaya's Wish List quests. You might find some stuff that would appeal to you if you're looking for stuff that's challenging to get a good score on.
So I actually thought this was sort of an interesting question because, as we said, like Stamina RPG has like the most entrants of like basically any dance game tournament essentially. And so like I feel like Stamina is actually like the most accessible and approachable form of, I think, because it has such like a linear progression.
Yes, I meant to touch on this earlier. That's an excellent point that I definitely wanted to mention something about. So yeah, the progression in stamina. Like with tech stuff, so much of it is like going from one day to the next. You don't really feel yourself getting better, right? Like you might see some scores on specific songs, like the excellent count or the perfect count going down or whatever, right? But it's like, you know, it's really easy to get yourself into bad mental funks, like, get like bad muscle memory. It's really easy to like, you know, get out of it for a little while and then suddenly like there's all this new content in FA packs that you don't even know. And it's just like with stamina, it's like as long as you're making consistent effort, like I will say if you drop stamina and then come back to it after a while, getting back into it sucks because like you have no stamina and you have to get it back. But it comes back, in a couple of weeks. It's always been easier for me to come back to like FA and stuff in tech. Like that's usually like a session or two. Stamina, it can take longer to build that back up. But like stamina, it's just like, it's like you can see, okay, I passed this song. And then a couple of weeks later, I passed this song that's a higher difficulty. And it's like I did better at this difficulty at this BPM. It's like you can track your progress. And it's a lot easier to really like understand how you're improving. Whereas with tech, it's like, am I improving? Am I working on the right things? Am I just getting better at this one song by playing it 100 times in a row? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know, it's always been hard for me to approach.
It's been interesting recently because my girlfriend's been getting into stamina stuff actually.
Okay,
That
that's cool.
like she used to play ITG kind of back in
Same.
the day. I mean, yeah, she used to play ITG a long time ago and has been playing DDR recently, but now she has access to a cab for a while, so she's been playing, and she's like immediately clicked with stamina stuff, and she's like, oh yeah, I'm playing this 130 BPM song. She's like, oh, I'm going to try 135 BPM song. That's like
Right.
same, it's about the same difficulty, but you can just like really, really incrementally and very like easily understand like, okay, this is harder than that. Whereas like
Yep.
with DDR and things, like it's so difficult to tell like like you can play 118
Yeah.
and like pass it and then play another like Pluto Relinquish and just like fail immediately, and you're like, what the hell was that? But it that stamina, I think, is approachable to so many people because you can just like really easily see your progress like
Yeah.
that, and you know specifically like how to tweak the knobs, like either, oh, this song is longer or this song is faster or this song has a longer run in it or whatever. That I think it's just really easy for people to tell like that they are making progress and like how to make progress, whereas with tech stuff it's just so like opaque sometimes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. And you articulated that really well, better than I could. So yeah.
As somebody who doesn't really play stamina,
Well,
found,
you would
Sometimes
if
it's
you could.
easier when you're on the outside looking in to like
Yeah.
make some of these observations. So.
I found, I was like going through old photos of my phone the other day, and I found I played what's the pendulum vocal mix?
Hold your color by
hold your
Blur.
color vocal mix. Yeah,
Yeah.
I found an old score I got on that from like
Yeah, I remember you playing that.
4
I
years
remember
ago
when
or
you and
something, and I was
Steven
like,
got into Pendulum for a brief stint a couple years ago.
yeah, I was like, oh, that was the last like stamina thing I did. I don't know. Sometimes when I go back to Fresno, I play some Eurobeat chart. I love Eurobeat. I think Roger does too. Loves playing the Eurobeat kind of.
It's just so easy,
It's
but it feels like it's not.
yeah, it's 160 is like the perfect stamina BPM for me right now, because like it feels challenging, and this is gonna sound ridiculous to you, but like it feels a little bit challenging. Like 140 is kind of boring for me, but then like 160, I'm like, okay, I can do this, and like I can push myself. But then when I hit like even pendulum stuff, I'm like, okay, this is like hard for me, like to do 174. So I really like that 160 to 165 sort of range that a lot of the Eurobeat stuff falls into.
I love the comfort zone. It's so comfortable.
Yeah, the comfort zone is a big problem. Like,
Give me 138 all day, baby.
yeah,
138.
I've got to
I
find
think I
more
agree
ways
with
to
that.
push people to those higher BPMs. Because what ends up happening is that like there's now this huge bottleneck of people that like they keep doing longer and longer stuff at 160 or whatever, and like that's as high as they'll go. Like trying to get them to do the 170 stuff, it's like, and the problem is that like you end up having like, the only way that you can really push your block rating at that point is like doing stuff that's like 7 hours long. You know, the only way you're going to get a 21 at 150 BPM is to do 7 hours of it.
Yeah.
You know, there's a 4-hour unbroken 140 BPM stream. My girlfriend, Made, she passed that. And she has passed 117 at like 173. But she passed that, and that's like a 21, and I never passed
That's
it.
insane.
You know, I've tried it like several times. Like one time, like I went into shock because like I didn't drink enough water beforehand, and I was just like, I got cramped up. I walked off, and then I sat down, and I just started shaking, and I could
My
not stop.
God.
And then all the other times,
Sounds
I just
fun.
wrecked my heels.
Sounds normal as heck.
But she runs like marathons and stuff, so for her, something that's slower, she could just push herself through it.
Yeah.
but that's-
How much of it is mental?
So much of it for stamina specifically. Like if you're doing something that's like at a BPM that you've progressed to the point of trivialization is sort of how I think of it. Like it's all just mental at that point. Like your physical ability is no longer a question, you know. So like a lot of times that ends up being the way I think about it is like if you're doing like a chart with over 500 measures of something, you've trivialized it. Like you could just do it basically forever at that point, or effectively forever.
Until your body just like gives up.
Yeah, like the problem at that point literally becomes like everything else but your legs. Like if you're doing something with much more run than that, then you're talking about 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, hour plus to make it the difficulty that it is. And at that point, it's like, do I want to keep subjecting myself to this pain, the sweat, the, you know, my arms are going numb, like, or do I want to stop? And that's like the marathon stuff. That's like pure stamina. And some people don't like it. Some people that are into stamina don't like really long stuff. I'm into it. Like I sort of like had a big hand in pioneering that and forcing it down everyone's throats. But there are people that really, they like the shorter stamina stuff. They hate doing anything that's long. There's too many environmental factors. It's like you drip sweat on the pad, and then it's like for the next 200 measures, you're just like fucked, and like, you know, your foot's dragging. And
You have to
That's
have,
so relatable.
you have to have somebody like there squirting baby
yeah, there's
powder
literally
on
like pit crews,
Yeah.
like you'll get for
Oh,
like really long
so
stuff.
funny.
Ever
You'll
since I-
definitely want to ask for help because it's like you can do it without a pit crew, but especially if it's like you know, for instance, the 4-hour, you know, 140 stream or Eternal Nectar, which is 2 hours of unbroken 160. Your comfort BPM. You should try that sometime. It's literally you don't have any breaks, so it's just an unbroken stream. You know, the 140 BPM thing is 8,000 measures of 140 BPM. Unbroken.
Where are people finding this music that's a constant BPM for 2 hours?
Well, so that was actually a mix put together by Fiera's fiance or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was just like a mix. Eternal Nectar was just Nocturnal Nectar, which is like a 15-footer looped, or 16. Sorry, it got re-rated. I'll get lynched for that one. It just looped for 2 hours, which was absolutely miserable because like the song is just kind of like droning dark psytrance. So it's just like for 2 hours straight.
Oh my
The most
God.
miserable experience of my life was doing that chart. But yeah, if it's unbroken, you just like can't. You have to have a pit crew. There's no way. Like if the packet's sticky, you just fucked. You just have to deal with it. If you want water, you're fucked. You can't drink it. Like my friend Mike, he has like these crazy strats he does. He like suspended like water from the ceiling one time so that he could like drink from it like without help because he wanted to play an 8-hour chart while no one else was around. Like he was trying to do the Salaryman challenge, which is like 9 to 5 streaming.
Oh my god.
What?
So he rigged up some
Let's
stuff
just wear
to do that.
camelback.
Yeah, I was gonna say camelback.
Yeah, well, that would be the way to do it now, but that wasn't as much of a thing back then, I don't think.
This is
a couple years ago.
So this is all an interesting segue to another question I've been wanting to hear your take on, which is from @JC_Denton46. What's the best way to gain stamina in general? Is it the longer sessions with easier and harder charts? Or is it harder charts the entire time for a shorter but harsher session?
Yeah, so
Which is
this
like-
one I actually
yeah.
have notes for, so good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like,
I wonder this myself all the time.
And honestly, people get this question for DDR too. So I think some of the philosophy behind it can apply to DDR too.
So, I thought the way this question was phrased was interesting because it's like, what's the best way to gain stamina? So there's sort of a question of definition there, right? Like, are you talking about what's the best way to become better at stamina, or what's the best way to literally improve your cardiovascular health? Like, are you talking about literal stamina, or are you talking about stamina charts? I'm not sure which way this was intended, but the for the latter one, it's sort of simpler. You know, like if you're just trying to get more physical stamina, like literally just be tired less and be able to do more tiring things without stopping or whatever. Just it's pretty much just as simple as playing more of it, pushing yourself, not just like, giving up real early. Like honestly, that is a major component. A lot of people in conjunction with this type of question will ask something along the lines of, and I think there's actually a question about this too. Should I do stuff besides ITG? Like, what exercise should I do? I think the question on Twitter was like, what do top players do for exercise besides this? So I'll tie this into this answer here. So like that stuff will help for sure, but sort of where I'm going with all this stuff that I'm saying right now is that the number one thing that's going to make you better at playing harder stuff, whether it's DDR or ITG, and I said this before, but I'm going to super emphasize this point, you have to play it. You just have to play it a lot. There's not like a quick solution. You just have to grind it, man. It's like an RPG. You just gotta grind the EXP.
So there's no
like,
supplements that you can take that are going to make you better at 15s?
There are people that like, they'll be like, oh, I tried that no explode stuff. It's like pre-workout supplements, but I'm doing that crap.
I mean,
like
Zedrux is like vegan. Even.
Yes, correct.
And
like there are people of all different types of diets that have been very successful at stamina specifically. He's vegan, I'm vegetarian. There are people that, do keto and they play and they're good. Like my friends Mike and Amy are both extremely successful tournament players. They both placed in the last ECS.
Oh, I saw Amy post some scores yesterday or 2 days ago that were just like mind blowing. Like I knew she was good at stuff, but she was passing like 24s and 25s, I think.
Amy deserves so much more recognition than she gets because she's just an absolute monster. Like she does stuff that's way beyond what I can do. But yeah, like they mostly stick away from like carbs and stuff. They eat meat. They're also very good. So diet doesn't really matter that much. Okay, I shouldn't say that. Like probably a good idea to not eat like shit. But if you have a diet that's by some metric considered healthy and conducive to doing physical activity, then you're probably going to be okay with it. You probably don't need to really stress about it that much. In terms of, like, is running going to make me better? I mean, not being completely sedentary is going to make you be in a better position to perform better, but you have to play the game to get better at the game. And the way you would work on getting better at stamina, like if we're talking about stamina charts, is what I would always recommend is a bottom-up approach. So start with low BPMs and work your way up. Don't start doing like foot speed stuff and try to go down. The reason I say this is because the form that you can use at a high BPM and get through like a 4-measure run is very difficult not difficult, it's very different. There we go, that word. That DIFF word. Very different from the form that you would need in order to sustain that same BPM for 800 measures. Like you can get away with just like throwing yourself around, like stomping around if the stream is really short. And this is something that would definitely apply to like DDR and pump and stuff too. Like you want to really like focus on working your way up on stuff and not like, just jumping to fast stuff and going down. I think that's probably my best advice. And besides that, it's not just staying in your comfort zone. I'm not saying that to pick on you guys, but it's legit. If your goal is to progress through the block ratings and stuff and stamina, you absolutely have to push yourself to go for higher BPMs, because otherwise you're going to end up in situations where you're streaming 160 for 2 hours straight.
No, I don't want to do
And
that.
there are very few people that would find that fun.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. Like I played DDR for 10 years, 2000, 2010, and then I stopped for a lot of reasons and started playing again when Ace came out in 2016, and I was like failing 17s and 18s legitimately. Like I could not get through them, and it was 100% because of endurance or stamina. So, I bought a machine in 2017. I was just playing a lot of DDR also, but I think that the idea that, you said this a while back, just playing the game more, making you good is definitely a true thing, and it works across games, right? So the reason why I was failing 17s and 18s in DDR is because I was just out of shape after not playing for 6 years of competitively. So once I got my stamina back up, everything else that was like kind of lower became a lot easier. So that's why I love playing through SRPG 4 now. It's just like feels so good to be in that comfort zone and share scores with Roger and compare White Fantastics and with 9-volt also, like a lot of kind of hype score sharing, but also just try to see how many measures I can go and how fast. It's super fun.
I was actually just going to ask you a question, and I found that there's a very similar one here on Twitter, actually, from Etienne, who isn't he the Stepmania player who did the?
He is a very skilled Stepmania player. Yes.
Yeah, wasn't he the one that did the showcase at GDQ?
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I was gonna ask sort of a similar question, but he's like, what's your take regarding passing versus scoring? It seems like players are rewarded more for efficient manipulation of the early windows to get passes rather than someone obtaining a cleaner score on lower difficulties. Kind of goes on talking about the 77.41 thing about Fair Apocalypse, which I remember the discussion around that. But I mean, my sort of take on this was like, if you're moving up through the difficulties, like if you can do a 16 or 17 and you're getting like 80% on them, like how do you know when to like go to the next level? Like, do you keep playing 16s until you can like get like a 95 or 96 on them, and then you're like, okay, I can go to like a 16 now? Or do you just like, all right, I passed a 16, I'm gonna go to a 17?
Yeah, that really depends on the person. And to speak to some of the stuff he said before I get to that, in terms of manipulating scoring to take advantage of the great window and whatever. I mean, you're really only getting an advantage if you're playing a chart that has like 6 measure runs, right? Like if it's a chart where you have to sustain the speed that you're doing, like you're not gonna like get through the run by starting it early and ending it late like you would on a foot speed chart. If you're doing a stream at 260 for 180 measures straight, like you're not going to start that early and end it late and have that make any difference.
Like you can't fake it.
You can't fake it. Like, yes, you're not stepping on time, but you're moving at that speed. Like you would fail. Like ITG has pretty strict life mechanics. Not as strict as like trying to play, I don't know, like pump on stage break off or whatever. Or stage break on. I can never remember which is which, but
it's very strict, especially compared with modern DDR. Where
modern DDR is very lenient, especially considering there's like no mash prevention.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like goods like don't hurt your life, right?
Yeah.
So you can literally, the way I look at it, if bracketing is not a thing that's banned, a pass on DDR is almost like completely meaningless as its own accomplishment, because you can just pass.
I'd
all you have
say
to do is just get on the brackets.
Most higher level players would probably agree with that, but I don't know, it might not be the case for Endymion Challenge.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, that like Endymion is like the one song that I have to bracket because I just like cannot do it.
Yeah. But broad strokes.
I don't know if you've given it a shot, but if you haven't, you should.
I don't have access to DDR anywhere.
I mean, even try it on.
You're sitting on a machine right now.
Yeah,
You know, I might pass you up on that, but maybe I'll check it out on YouTube. I don't know if I want to torture myself.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. I mean,
Yeah, send me a link.
It's a very good song. But yeah, the chart is
Most of the recent DDR has pretty awesome music. I don't have any qualms with that.
Yeah. I mean, it would be cool to have a stamina chart for. I mean, the song's only 2 minutes long, but you can.
I think it's been a step for stamina. Zaya stepped a chart in Cirque Enzo, I think.
Yeah, you can.
Like
you can loop it. But yeah, sorry, you were talking about the sort of timing window thing and scoring versus passing.
Yeah. So for foot speed, that the whole great window thing, I agree. I always thought that strategy really felt like bracketing to me, like it's just like BSing. Like I don't know. And it's kind of a slippery slope to say that kind of stuff because like where do you draw the line as to like what's legit and what's not? And,
I mean, if you're hitting the arrows.
Yeah, you're still hitting the arrows, but it's like you're not really moving at that speed.
I used to do that on like really fast drills in ITG, like like on Fuck DJ.
Well, you had to for that one, right?
That like it's like
24ths at that speed.
24ths at like 230 or something. That like I mean
238.
That you just like you start it a little bit early and then you end it a little bit late, but you still usually can kind of combo through it. So I think it does kind of have a place.
I think it's a cool mechanic for that kind of situation. I think
it does, like you said, it doesn't work for like 500 measures of something.
Yeah, you can't get it. It will not help you at all. Like that skill will not help you. So when you see these people that get like 69% passes, nice, with like 800 greats or whatever, like just keep in mind. Like that's through like a stream that's hundreds of measures long or some ridiculous amount of measures for the relative BPM in a lot of cases. Not always, obviously. I mean, there's people of all different skill levels. In terms of your question about like progression and stuff, and how score correlates to that, I mean, it comes down to what your objectives are with the game. Like there are people that are very, trying to think of the way to put it. There are people that are very proud and unwilling to compromise on their FA, and I think these people tend to have a lot of trouble being successful with stamina because it it sort of forces you to adjust your mindset if you want to be competitive. Because my number one thing is like, it doesn't matter how good you can score on something if you can't consistently pass it. And if your passing it is contingent on you having, 95% fantastics, and you're feeling like you're not getting that, or you're feeling like you're missing too many arrows, you're not going to finish the song. If you don't finish the song, well, then you didn't pass it. So I think it's really easy for people coming from other disciplines to fall into the trap of thinking they need to approach stamina in the exact same way. Now, a lot of those skills will transfer. Like being able to time well is definitely going to make you a monster at stamina FA, right? Like,
like Evan Sather recently.
Oh yeah, he's a legend.
I don't know if you've been seeing some of his score. I mean, he's playing like 14s, 15s, 16s, I think, but he's getting.
What's his name on SRPG? Is it just Evan
Sather? Probably
Clint Beastwood.
Clint Beastwood,
maybe.
Probably.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he's getting like 2 or 3% like white fantastics on stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's just on 2,000, 3,000 note charts. But I mean, he as you were kind of alluding to, like he's an old school like ITG player, so I think he has that kind of like built in. But I know, I mean, from my own experience, and talking to Ninja Far, that he kind of struggles with this too. Of that, like it's so hard. Like once you get a miss or something, you're like, oh, like, and it's really hard to break that perfectionist like mindset.
So Zetrix, he calls this the trap. Like you have all this stamina, and then like you end up in a situation where like, for him it was like he suddenly like realized that he was like really good at scoring on like stamina stuff. Like for a long time he had really good foot speed and like passable FA, but his stamina kind of sucked, but he like had really good willpower, so he could just push through it. But then him and Raw Input, Mike, got into like this spat over Cranked Pastry when that came out. And like, neither of them, they both, sorry guys, you both kind of sucked at stamina back then. You're both, amazing now. But back then you both kind of sucked. And they were like, betting on which of them could pass a 19 first from the pack. And Phil realized as he was going through the pack and trying to get better at it that he could just score really well on this stuff as he gained more and more stamina. And he got all these ridiculous records, and then he passed last trip, like first person to get that, and he got a pretty decent first pass on it. And then he came back and got the world record on that. But it's like as you get more and more of these sorts of scores, it's like get into this mindset where like you start getting those misses, and you're like, I'm doing bad on this song, I'm gonna stop. And then as you stop on more and more songs, stamina gets worse. Start passing less and less stuff. Start passing easier stuff and not harder stuff. And it's just like a cycle. So as much fun as Stamina FA is, I want to caution people against getting into that specific mindset where you're not willing to accept anything less than like a high 99 or a 99 on something. If you want to push beyond the level of content that you're doing, you absolutely need to accept the fact that you're going to get lower scores on faster stuff, on harder stuff, especially when you first start playing it.
Totally.
Yeah, I've definitely been tweaking my brain to accept this. Like I try to play like a few Stamina Face songs in a row and then play one song that's like out of my comfort zone and just try to only focus on my form and literally nothing else. Like I will look to the screen for like directional information and literally just focus on, okay, where exactly am I putting my foot for literally each arrow? And that's been a good way to like kind of take the focus off the score and just focus on technique and like with that breathing and with that like, quote unquote stamina.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Roger, you kind of fall into this trap, I think, right?
Yeah, it's tough because like on some level, like there's all kinds of stuff going on inside my head about like, oh, I don't really care about stamina. What I really care about is score. And so like when I'm playing, like, and I see, that I'm getting like quads on 13s and stuff, like I know that means that I should be playing 14s, but like I try
feels
it
so good.
and it hurts and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And like I don't really know what the solution is. I guess it's like what Omid just said, like the few 14s and stuff that I've cleared and the harder, like the kind of like the foot speed 13s, like the things that I do to keep going are like think about my breathing and I count the percent in Japanese. Like I read the percent as it's climbing up and I count it in Japanese in my head because I'm not very good at doing that and it takes a lot of mental effort for me to do it. So it like kind of takes the CPU away from the pain. But I don't really know what to do about it other than to just force myself to play harder songs. And I guess that's the point of Stamina RPG, which I actually haven't officially started yet. I've just been playing some songs from it. So I think I'm going to start that tomorrow once I get it installed.
Yeah,
but
dude, dive in. It's super easy. Like, as long as you've got your account on Groove Stats, I've tried to make it as simple as possible. Like that's the whole reason why I didn't have scoring as a thing before last year was because I wanted it to be very low effort for everyone involved. Like you just scan your screen, QR codes, just like it's very, very easy. Not quite as convenient maybe as like EMUs or something, but damn near close.
It's definitely an interesting approach to that. And I think it's like, I think it's a really good feature, especially because, you don't have to have some kind of complicated profile mechanism and anyone can just walk onto the machine and play it and the QR code like works the same.
Yeah.
It has
but there's
advantages.
Also some problems with it too. I mean, it's not perfect.
So, I mean, you mentioned Groove Stats, which is the first time we've said that word this entire time.
The last couple of minutes I've been thinking like, man, like there's so much stuff we haven't talked about and I don't even know if we're going to get to it.
It's been like an hour and a half already, believe it or not. So, like I said, this is going to be a stamina episode, baby.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
Keep going, Dalton. Let's go, Dalton. Let's go. Let's go.
We can try and wrap up shortly here. I'm sure people got to eat dinner and stuff. But so you're the developer and sort of admin of Groove Stats, correct?
Yeah.
Which is like I mean,
well, let him talk. Well, what is it? What is this thing we call Groove Stats?
Groove Stats is like, it's God, what was even that site called?
NNR or DDR recall.
I was gonna say NNR. Yes, DDR recall is the one I was thinking of, but NNR was also a thing. It's that, but for ITG. Site made by Ches originally, and
I was an admin at one point, or a moderator.
Mod. I think you probably might still be.
No.
I don't know. I don't think I ever.
I got it yanked at some point.
Oh well, I might have purged everyone at some point because someone did bad stuff, and I was like, you know what, like I don't even know some of these people. I should probably just like redo this.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. Well, just know that if I ever actually removed you myself, it was not personal or anything to do.
I was.
I actually don't remember doing it.
It was so funny back in the day. I mean, because I was around in the officials era of Groove Stats,
right, yeah.
And people would they would create a profile and like fill out like 100% for every single score.
Oh yeah.
And they probably spent like however long doing that, and then there's just like one button that's just like nuke account, and it's like why did you take all this time? Like, do you think people are gonna believe you? Like,
yeah, I always tell people when people are like, "Oh man, Ian, someone submitted all these scores to the RPG. They spent like an hour checking all these songs off," and I'm just like, "Oh." And then I spend 20 seconds like writing a query that just wipes it all out and cleans everything up. It's like I almost feel bad doing it sometimes because it's like it takes them so much longer than it does me to do
so
it.
Hard.
Yeah, but yeah. So Ches made it originally. This would have been back around 2005, 2004, something like that.
I was just looking up when I joined. Because I saw it on there the other day and thought it was, I think, October 3rd, 2004.
Yeah, and the news posts on the site don't actually even go back that long. So like I had trouble digging some of this up when I took over, and I was sort of starting to get my history straight in case I ever had to answer questions about this kind of stuff. But Groove Stats 2.0, which is mostly a modern version of Groove Stats, that came about in 2006 in April, and that was the same year that they added the custom song ranking. So there was this functionality, and this is sort of a big hub back in the day for where hard stuff was posted and ranked and stuff. You would donate a little bit of money to Ches, and then he would give you tokens that you could then use to upload charts. Like Eternus.
Oh yeah.
I remember that one. You stuffed that, right?
Yeah, that's one of mine.
Yep.
I still remember when the song tokens thing. I totally forgot about that. I think I got like 2 or 3 because I was a moderator, and I forgot I uploaded some like keyboard chart or some other kind of thing too. Oh man. Okay, so if I want to date myself, my site URL that I have on my profile.
Oh, it's gonna be a really low ass profile.
No, it's
profile ID.
Oh, I don't even know about my ID. No, I mean my you can have your website listed on your profile. So mine is still my MySpace.
Your MySpace
is listed as my personal profile.
What is your profile ID?
79.
That's old. Mine's 6,562. But a lot of those are like probably bots because
there's not that many people.
No, I'm curious. I'm gonna look mine up.
Oh, yours would be old too. Yeah. But yeah, while you guys are enjoying that trip down memory lane, so the custom song ranking was a thing. He added that, and then eventually he started moving away from In the Groove. So Pump It Up Pro was added in 2008. Which, for those of you who are unaware, the people that aren't super old, that was basically the people that made In the Groove went on to make Pump It Up Pro 1. Pump It Up Pro 2 sort of had some similar involvement, but the team was mostly different. But Pro 1 was the first non-ITG thing, besides the custom pack ranking, that got added on Groove Stats. And then In the Groove Rebirth was the first custom pack that was ranked for In the Groove. That was also added in 2008. But around this time, Konami had sued, and In the Groove was sort of in its death throes, so to speak. And a lot of people were moving on, including Ches, who probably, has found better things to do with his life, I assume, since then. Here's a bit of lore about Groove Stats that I think probably almost no one is aware of. Raw Input, who you might remember at the very beginning of this conversation, is the guy who won East Coast Stamina 8. He purchased Groove Stats from Ches. He actually is the person that owns the site.
Oh, nice.
He's my buddy, Harrisburg player on the East Coast.
We didn't even say. Where are you from?
I'm from the East Coast.
Well,
that's where all the stamina is.
There we go. That works.
I think it's worth noting that Groove Stats, like, you compared it to DD Recall or NNR.
Yeah.
But Groove Stats has been around, like, at this point longer than any other dance game score ranking website, including EMU's. So
that's actually pretty funny to think about.
There are more scores on Groove Stats, even definitely more on Groove Stats than there ever were on NNR or DD Recall, and I wonder how it compares to EMU's just in terms of like the numbers of like records that exist on there.
There's a lot. It's in the hundreds of thousands. I think there's almost 1 million score entries.
Wow.
Are you guys still working on it? Like,
oh yeah, it's actively. I mean, all the SRPG stuff is all hosted on Groove Stats. It uses the Groove Stats, database. So it all touches and connects and stuff.
Are you a developer in your real life as well?
Yes. I wouldn't classify myself as a particularly skilled one, but the one thing I have going for me is that I'm willing to do a lot of this work that a lot of people aren't willing to put all that time into. So even though I'm not the most competent coder, I've kept Groove Stats alive and somewhat relevant for 9 years now. I got involved in 2011.
It's the stamina, baby.
Yeah, that's stamina.
It all comes back. You're just persistent.
I often joke that I'm eventually going to become the best stamina player because everyone else is going to move on from the game or get old or break their legs or whatever, and I'm still going to be playing. And I'll still be passing the same stuff I was, but I'll be the best by default. So
awesome. Were there any other Twitter questions that you saw there that you wanted to hit on really quick?
Let me make sure there wasn't anything else major.
What was the worst stamina meta and why is it jump stream? I think we covered that.
We did touch on that.
I don't understand why Tommy likes Gangster Town.
Oh yeah, I did actually have an answer to that one. I said it's definitely not Gangster Town. That's just way too much of a hot take. But there are way too many good songs in SRPG to just pick one. So I actually don't have one that I could go with. If I was going to go with one, it would probably be one of the spoiler songs. So I probably wouldn't say it on this anyway.
There we go.
So that's actually a cool thing about SRPG that we've only alluded to, but basically the idea that when you do these quote unquote quests, you unlock songs, and then you get to download those unlocks and put them in your folder and play. And it's like it actually feels like you're unlocking stuff like you would in a game. It's really cool. Like I think it's a neat take.
Yeah, it's I'm kind of rolling, and I touched on this earlier, like how it combines different aspects of my favorite things. And it's like kind of a little throwback to like the old days when you'd have to put in a pad code to unlock Pandemonium, or
exactly.
like go into the menu to get boss songs or whatever in your DDRs, or was it the menu and did you have to put a pad code in for that? I don't even know.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be really cool if you just like had your own version of Statmania, like with a custom theme, and actually built-in song unlocks for doing certain quests and things like that.
Yeah.
I've thought about it. It's something I'm interested in doing. It's, with all this stuff, it's always a matter of, I have a million ideas. Like, that's another thing. I'm not a competent coder. but I have a lot of ideas, and it's always a matter of how do I prioritize these ideas? Like, what matters the most to me? What matters the most to the community? And like, what do I need to do right now? And there's a million things competing for my attention, but QR codes I thought were a quick fix to get things like integrated in a way that was a low-level lift for people that were on the theme side, so that I didn't have to ruin their life with my weird musings. And down the road, I would definitely like to do integration with groove stats in themes, but that would definitely involve help from people like Sujit and Dan, DBK2, who, by the way, I just want to give him a huge shout out because he's largely... Okay, there's a lot of people that appreciate him, but it is not stated nearly often enough how much he has done. Like, setting aside however you feel about like the aesthetic of Simply Love, which is not his aesthetic, by the way. It was not his design. He just picked it up from what was built in 395 by Matt and Laura. Everything he's done to build out that theme and to just make it just this awesome platform for playing, I want to say in the groove, but it's kind of just Stepmania at this point, but don't worry about that.
I mean, so
everything he's done is amazing.
Sorry to interrupt, but I mean, you said a really interesting thing, that it is more of a platform than a theme, actually.
Yeah,
like
it absolutely is.
It's the theme, to me, it speaks to the aesthetic, but like the platform is like the features.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, that's what people don't get. Like, when people, and like, I hate to talk about negative stuff, but like, when people like rag on the way that Simply Love looks or whatever, it's just like, and they're like, why doesn't someone just make another theme already? Why does no one use anything else? It's like, because nothing else has what Simply Love has. There's so much stuff that's baked into that theme. Like, you have no idea how deep it goes. There's so much stuff that's just not in, your bread and butter SM5 build.
Mm-hmm. The amount of work that it would take to actually do that is like absolutely non-trivial. It would take, like, it would be a job, like an actual job, and you would definitely need to pay people to do it.
And I do want to give a shout out to Jim Aoreo as well, because he's been actually working on another theme that uses a lot of the core mechanics that exist in Simply Love, but do another spin on it. It's Digital Dance is the name of it, which is based off of a really old meme from, I think, Phil's Zedrix's dad.
It's definitely a great name.
Yes, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. But so that's a thing. If Simply Love isn't your thing, try Digital Dance. It's on GitHub. It's linked on Stamina RPG 4. Just go get it.
And really quick, we had Zedrix ask 3 questions here. Do you want to pick one of them to? He said, what are some of your favorite and least favorite tournament moments? How have the rules and format of ECS changed over time? And then, out of everyone who completed the Dirk challenge, who is your favorite? So, pick one of those.
Yeah, I definitely need to answer his question since I've mentioned him so much on this podcast. Favorite and least favorite tournament memories. The record from ECS 2, I think it was, which I'm just gonna leave it at that for that one. That one gets kind of dirty. How the rules and formats changed. The rules and format evolved as my competency with Excel and Google Sheets evolved, and then my willingness to invest time into developing like infrastructure for like websites and stuff, specifically for the events, evolved. So like, it's gotten basically like my skill with different applications and with programming, as that's improved, and my my willingness to spend more and more time and effort, and in many cases money, on this stuff, as that's increased, the format has evolved, and it's been driven very largely by those factors. I would say would be the biggest ones. Does that sort of cover that answer?
Yeah.
I'm just trying
No.
to hit each of them briefly. And out of everyone who completed the Dirk Challenge, who's your favorite? Well, that's no contest, although... Okay, so if we're saying that you completed the Dirk Challenge, Phil, then it would be you. But you didn't complete it.
What
really.
is the Dirk Challenge?
I'm trying to decide if I want to answer that question or if I want people to just wonder.
Well, we can just
It's
we
like
can let
deep
them wonder.
stamina lore.
We'll let them wonder. They can look it up.
Yeah, ask around. This is a community building thing. Ask around. What is the Dirk Challenge?
Yeah.
All right, so before we hop off, sorry, Doll, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask for plugs.
That's exactly what I was gonna ask for.
Go for
so
it.
How can people find you? What should people do if they want to start playing, etc., etc.?
Okay, this is one of those things I probably should have prepared for, but did not. So I'm just gonna wing it. How can people find me? I'm on Facebook as Ian Piles. You probably have a mutual friend with me if you play dance games. There's also the Stamina Nation Discord, and I'm pretty active there. If you request a role,
You can find that on Groove Stats. It's on the social sidebar.
yes, absolutely. Thank you. Should have mentioned that. But yeah, if you end up requesting a role or whatever in the suggest request channel, I will probably be the one that fills it unless it's between the hours of I go to bed and I wake up. If you want to get into tracking your scores on Groove Stats, it's just groovestats.com. There's every relevant pack, basically, that has been in tournaments, has been asked for, or has been judged to be super good by usually me, is ranked on Groove Stats. So if you like playing custom stuff on In the Groove, or even if you just want to track your officials, Groove Stats is the place to go. There's obviously also Stamina RPG, which is also the qualifier for East Coast Stamina 9, which we also managed to not talk about at all on this. But that's a tournament. It's an event. Stamina RPG is cool. You should sign up for that. You just need a Groove Stats account and just register on Groove Stats and then go to the Stamina RPG 4 link and you can get in on it. I recommend using, again, either Simply Love or the Digital Dance theme for Stepmania 5, as those both support QR code score submissions, and QR codes with this format, or with this event, I should say, are very cool because it allows for me to give you feedback when you submit those scores. So like I can show you, hey, on the website that comes up, it'll be like, you gained this much experience, and so on and so forth. So definitely recommend QR codes. You can still enter scores manually, though, on the Stamina RPG website if you don't want to go with that.
You got Venmo, Cash App?
I should have something set up for that. Someone randomly set up like a GoFundMe last year. Shoutouts to Kurt, I guess, for that, but it's like not being used anymore. I will put a donation link at some point on the Stamina RPG website. If you like what I do, please donate, because I spend so much money on commissions for music and mixing and art and venue like considerations and prizes and free prizes for the ECS 0.5 tournaments that I mail out to every corner of planet Earth.
I'm sure we can help fund you somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
The community's pretty good at that sort of thing, I've found.
Yeah. Just FYI, and I don't like to harp on this. In fact, I don't think I've ever really said anything about it publicly, but ECS operates at a very large loss. It is definitely in the red every single year. So seriously, if you like the stuff that I do, I will be able to do more of it and devote more of my time to it if you help out. If you feel
you've got
so
a Twitch, they can subscribe to your Twitch, right?
Yeah, just subscribe to my Twitch. I'm affiliated on there, so I get money supposedly. I've never actually checked, but I think I do.
I think it's really important to emphasize that like everything that's done, especially in the ITG community, is like completely grassroots, and people are doing all of this stuff in their spare time. And like I just want to say thanks for putting the effort into it because, you know, like me and these guys, we do a lot of this stuff too. And I think that it just people need to just kind of like think about that for a second. I at some point I was like harping on Simply Love or something on Twitter one day, and Ash Astral was like, you know, like our friends are the ones who like do this stuff like for free, and like instantly I was just like, oh my god, like I can't believe that I was I was so mean about this. And not only that, like it just instantly made me want to give them money or like actually, you know, try and promote everything. Like it's crazy the amount of work and the amount of resources that you and everyone else puts into this stuff for basically the just the love of it. And that's like really amazing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what makes like the ITG like community so tight, like close knit, especially compared to like the DDR community. Even is just because like people are just pouring their heart and soul into like creating step charts and graphics and like. I tried to make a stamina chart recently. It's not easy. You think you could just throw some 16ths on there, but man, like I was like, man, these are not pitch relevant steps at all.
Yeah, I really wish I would have been able to touch on that too. Zaya did a whole fucking like PowerPoint presentation that was like 1,000,000 slides long at StaminaCon last year. Just talking about writing stamina step charts. Like for anyone that thinks it's just random streams, it's not. There's a whole different meta involved with writing those competently. So
yeah, mine was not competent.
Yeah,
so.
It just takes time. I'm sure you would. You're OG step artist, man. You've been around forever, like Eternus, man.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
old school.
Let's talk about the chart on that one and not the cut.
Yeah, don't worry about that stuff. But yeah, seriously, speaking of everyone that contributes and stuff, I would be remiss if I didn't thank everyone that's been involved with Stamina RPG especially, but also like, you know, all the people that helped with StaminaCon and stuff last year, even for stuff as little as just like helping me carry shit around and set up and things. Like there's over 20 people, you know, that contributed in different ways to Stamina RPG 4, you know, and there were over 20 people last year that contributed, whether it be through like charts or helping me pick songs to use, or like on the programming end of it, or art, or music, or mixing, or whatever. So there's so many people, and seriously, big shout outs to all of you guys. I really appreciate everyone that is willing to put up with me and work with me on this stuff. Usually. It's unfortunate, but a lot of the more important work ends up being unpaid and, you know, somewhat thankless work in a lot of cases. And I just want you to know, I thank you for it. Like Dom, all the help you did with like programming, I love you. Dan, like we were talking about you, everything you've done with Simply Love, it's such an amazing theme. Sujit.
Platform.
Yeah, platform. It really should just be called a platform at this point. I'm not going to go down a list of names. You know, Pluto, I have to mention her and everyone else. But, like, it's just, there's so many people that do so much cool stuff in so many different ways, whether it be, like, the music with Remy and whatnot. But, yeah, I really appreciate just how much of a community effort this whole thing is.
Awesome, man. Well, it's been an absolute blast having you on, and definitely some heartfelt stories were shared, and you know, this might be our longest episode yet, and I'm kind of glad that that's the case because stamina.
It's appropriate.
It's only appropriate.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So we have a tradition here on the show. You know, I think we should still do it, even though we're not really talking about DDR anymore. So let's go ahead.
No,
all right, guys.
Wait! I got an idea. I got an idea. Is there like a stamina chant? Can we say Stamina Nation instead?
Yeah, okay.
I'm into it. It's almost the same number of syllables too.
Yeah, Stamina Nation.
All right. So, thank you for playing, and Stamina Nation.
Sorry if I
Yeah.
got too rambly at points. I have
No,
a really
dude,
bad tendency to do that.
it is awesome. That's what always happens with the show, just because we can talk forever about this stuff. So, and it's just always great to get different viewpoints and
Plus, we have
people on
nothing
and stuff.
else to do.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
All right.